Welcome back. You are listening to Nate the Hate on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And be sure to give the video a big thumbs up and a like. And if you are a fan of Chuck Berry, you know what to do with that bell in the corner. And with that, I'd like to welcome in my co-host, Modern Vintage Gamer.
Going on, Nate. Great to be here. We're going to talk directly today, aren't we?
Yes, very directly, because a Nintendo Direct is now upon us, and this is kind of a interesting Nintendo Direct, for it is a Nintendo Direct that we have not been in the presence of in quite some time. And if you are confused by that, what I am referring to as this is a Nintendo Direct that is potentially the final Nintendo Direct that could focus purely on Nintendo Switch exclusive software, because we are on that precipice of the next generation of Nintendo home consoles coming. And we're in that interesting moment. So we're kind of at that end of a generation type of Nintendo Direct here, both from Nintendo's own output as well as third-party output, though there will obviously be some crossover after a successor does come out. When that is in 2024 remains to be seen. But this is going to be, I think, a pretty telling show in terms of where the Switch is in its life cycle. And back in June, it clearly showed that Nintendo had a lot of ambition still to play with the Switch in terms of new software releases, where we saw Luigi's Mansion 2 Dark Moon get announced for Switch, as well as a new Super Princess Peach. And, you know, it looked as though they were paving out a nice little roadmap for 2024 in terms of software support. So this September Direct is going to be equally as meaningful and insightful for what the future of the Switch is going to look like. And I think that's going to be reflected quite strongly in the predictions that we have compiled during this episode.
Yeah, I think you just kind of went a roundabout way of saying, at least for me, that this is going to be probably the hardest Direct to predict, because of what you just said. There is a lot of things that are up in the air right now with Nintendo. Obviously, they are getting their ducks in a row for new hardware. And the difficulty is really trying to make predictions about what we're going to see on the Switch during this Direct. But I think we have a couple of interesting predictions to make. So without any further ado, let's maybe just jump in and get started. I know people are wanting to listen to this. So, yeah, what do you got for us, Nate?
Well, we're going to open our predictions with the third-party and indie games that we think could show up. And again, I want to emphasize these are predictions unless we specifically say we know it will be there. These are pure predictions, guesses, and hopes. And one of the third-party games that I think has a very strong chance of being there, courteous of a recent rating board leak, is Ubisoft's much-loved Beyond Good and Evil, with a 20th anniversary being released seemingly this year. It hasn't been announced, but it feels as though this is a perfect place for Ubisoft to announce this game. It kind of has a nice little legacy of being on the GameCube. A lot of people felt as though it was very similar to Zelda games. So I think Beyond Good and Evil 20th Anniversary Edition will show up in this particular Direct.
This is definitely a good start for our predictions. Like, I think that Beyond Good and Evil 20th Anniversary does make a lot of sense. It did come out for the GameCube, like you said. I mean, it came out for Xbox as well, and as PlayStation, I believe. It's also a very sought after game these days. It's quite up there in price. Good prediction to make. The ESRB rating that was it ESRB, or was it some other ratings board?
I believe this one was might have
Korea,
been
maybe?
Singapore,
Singapore.
or
in any case,
Australia. We've had a lot of rating leaks lately.
We have. I mean, in any case, this is a good one to make kind of just before the Direct as well. So I like Beyond Good and Evil 20th Anniversary for this. It's also a very good game, and it's also a game that I'd be very happy to see come back to a modern audience. It's been a long time, 20 years, as the name suggests. So this is a good game. And look, let's be honest, we're not going to see Beyond Good and Evil 2 anytime soon, if ever. So I
True.
think this is a good pick.
Yeah, I mean, we did have the HD version come out on Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, probably close now to 13 years. But yeah, let people re-experience this game, and if a sequel ever is to come out, at least people are familiar with the source material of its prequel. And second prediction is a game that is coming up fairly soon, and it is releasing in November. We haven't seen any footage of the game yet, and that would be Warner Brothers' Hogwarts Legacy. Came out earlier this year on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series, and then it was followed by an Xbox One and PlayStation 4 release in the summer. The Switch version is the only version that has yet to come to market, but as said, it does come out in November. So this seems like a good venue to finally showcase the game and show that there is some promise in terms of the visual display that the game will have when it comes to Switch, because we have seen some pretty rough looking Switch ports in the last couple of days. I am, of course, referring to Mortal Kombat 1, which looks as though it had a fatality committed to it. And,
Wow.
I think Hogwarts Legacy, it's going to be one of those big releases in terms of just a holiday presence. The other versions will sell a lot this holiday, and having that Switch version shown here will give it a little bit of energy leading up to its release in November. And, I think this direct is a good place for Warner Brothers to highlight this version.
Yeah, I agree. I like Hogwarts for the direct. Look, it's been a while since the mainline versions did release. So I think it kind of behooves WB and Nintendo just to remind people that, yes, this game is coming out. It's almost finished. It's coming out in November. It's going to be a game that you're going to want to play over the holidays. But yes, Hogwarts. Look, I don't feel like there's anything that's a lock in this direct, Nate, because it's so difficult to really kind of put your finger on any single game. But I feel pretty confident that Hogwarts is going to be there.
Now, with this direct taking place in September and in the general vicinity of the Tokyo Game Show, I do suspect that we will have a meaningful presence from a lot of Japanese publishers, especially those who have games to show off at Tokyo Game Show, be it in a playable state or even just as a display with a trailer playing. So I think this is a good venue for Atlas to bring Persona Tactica, which releases later this year on all platforms, and just kind of reintroduce it to the audience. This was officially announced back in June, but maybe if they have a demo release or something of that sort, this direct would be a good option for Atlas to remind people of the upcoming game, and it caters both to that Japanese audience that they're definitely going to be appealing to with Tokyo Game Show just around the corner.
Yep. Persona Tactica. This is not anything that I have any interest in at all. I'm just going to take your word for it and say, yeah, it's happening. How about that?
I mean, it's just a prediction.
Yep.
But I think it's one that makes sense. I also think it's a good place for Level 5 to highlight a lot of those games they had announced for Switch
Yes.
earlier this year, like DecaPolice, Professor Layton, because they've kind of gone silent on these games since those initial announcements. And again, with this being a direct that's going to lead into Tokyo Game Show, it's just perfect pairing. So it's time to show us these games, give it a release window for 2024 when these games will be coming to the platform, and give us a nice look at what the games are going to be delivering. So, like Professor Layton, let us see what some of those puzzle designs are going to be like. And it just feels as though this is the place to do it. I don't really see any other venue for the remainder of the year or Level 5 to highlight these games or showcase them in any meaningful light.
This is a good prediction as well, Nate. I think Level 5, Professor Layton, Deca Police, we know about these games. Seeing these before Tokyo Game Show does make a lot of sense. So I'm with you on this one. I mean, if I think back to last year's Direct, the September Direct, we got a lot of farming games.
We got farming and some fairy games.
Yeah. I can see some of this Level 5 stuff being here before the Tokyo Game Show.
Now, I do want to bring up another it's Japanese in origin, at least as far as IP ownership goes, and it's Metal Slug Tactics.
Yeah, what happened to this game?
It went missing. It
It really
was
did.
originally slated for 2022. It was delayed into 2023, and we haven't heard anything of the game up to this point. So now I kind of say it's this is do or die if it's going to make 2023 at this point. It should be in this direct. The only way I think it could forego this direct is if Nintendo happens to have an indie, showcase, maybe
Right.
let's say in October or November or something. But otherwise, this is kind of that moment. It has made a strong presence each time it was shown in a direct, and the fact that it's been absent for so long, it feels as though it has to make a reappearance at some point, and now is the right time for it.
Yeah, so I was kind of reading up on this before we were recording, and we did get some communication last year that it was going to come out this year, and we haven't heard anything, between last year and this year. At this point, we didn't get any updates about it in previous directs this year or any type of showcase. So I think the time is now for Metal Slug Tactics to reappear, and hopefully the game is ready to go, and they announce a date for it. I personally am very excited about this game. I was very excited when they first showed it off. I'm a big fan of Metal Slug from the days of the Neo Geo. I know you love Metal Slug as well, Nate.
Uh-huh.
So for me, yeah, there's probably some willing this into existence, some hopes, some dreams involved. But I also feel like this is a very calculated prediction based on the fact that we've heard nothing. But we were told. I have to double check some of these news articles, but a lot of them said 2023. Now I'm not sure if that came from .emu, that messaging, or if it was just an assumption that was made. But in any case, I think Metal Slug Tactics is a good prediction, and I think it's going to be at this direct.
A man looking forward to the Metal Slug Tactic game, but not the Persona Tactic game. I'll stay on the topic of tactics, and naturally, it's a segue into Square Enix. Square Enix typically has a presence in any Nintendo Direct, so I'm going to pitch it to you. Final Fantasy Tactics. Does it make an appearance here? Yes or no?
No.
I agree. It's not the proper place or time for Final Fantasy Tactics to appear. I do believe Square Enix will have a presence in the Direct, and sometimes these can differ for each region, so maybe they have more of a presence in Japan versus the Western Direct. But I do think we get at least one game from Square Enix in the Direct, but likely something that's going to be smaller. I'm not going into this expecting an update on Dragon Quest III HD, or as we mentioned, Final Fantasy Tactics. I think it's going to just be one of their smaller published type deals, something more along the lines of a front mission. So
Right.
those hoping to see, a Chrono Trigger remake or anything like that, I certainly wouldn't get your hopes up in this case. But yeah, Square Enix, definitely some sort of presence, just a question of how meaningful it will be. And
That Parasite Eve, are we going to get that?
Parasite Eve.
Yeah.
Who would be making it?
I don't know. The Square Enix game, though, right?
Yeah, but you can't just throw out that type of prediction and not have a developer attached.
Fair enough.
Is it Forever Entertainment?
I mean, it could be.
Why would you wish such terror on a quality game like Parasite Eve?
Wow. The Forever Entertainment disrespect continues.
And it shall continue until they prove me wrong. House of the Dead didn't prove it. And
House of the Dead wasn't bad. I mean, it's a very, very difficult and ambitious port to make, because obviously the main draw is missing from that port. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the visuals looked good, but the game had a lot of hitches and hiccups, and sometimes the aiming reticule would auto go center, even if you didn't want it there. And it had just some frame drops where it really that messes with you when you're playing a light gun game, having frame drops.
Oh yeah.
But it's not the Forever Entertainment Bash session. This is Nintendo Direct predictions. So one game I'm going to also mention here because it did leak again very recently is Gotham Knights. And this is a game I am very eager to see how it will look and run on the Switch because originally it was slated to come to Xbox One and PlayStation 4, and those versions had been canceled due to performance concern. Then the game came to Xbox Series and PlayStation 5 with a 30 FPS cap. And I am curious, how is this possibly going to run on the Nintendo Switch? So I want to end this direct purely for that sake. I want to see what can this game possibly be looking and running like.
This is a good prediction because yes, it was recently rated as well on the ESRB ratings, I believe. And yeah, this is going to be an interesting one to see exactly how WB have pulled this one off. This could be it could go one of two ways, I believe. It could look like MK1, or it could be the air quotes impossible port. And I'm not really sure what to expect with this. I'm leaning towards it's going to be good because I have some friends that work at WB and they work on Gotham Knights. I don't know anything about this port at all, of course, but I'm hopeful that this will actually be a good experience on the Nintendo Switch. And if they can somehow pull it off, I think it will be quite impressive. And I say that because I've been playing Gotham Knights on my Steam Deck, and I got to tell you, Nate, it's a great time playing a game like that on a handheld. So if they can somehow make this all work with some magic in there as well, it could be a good port. So I think we will see a prediction. We will see Gotham Knights at this Nintendo Direct. But yeah, as far as what it looks like, how it performs, I'm hopeful. But of course, this is a very ambitious port to the Switch, just in the same mold as Hogwarts and Mortal Kombat. So we'll have to see.
No, I think I'm going to retract my prediction.
What?
We have Arkham Knight coming up in October, and I think that's a little too much Gotham in a close vicinity. So
Yeah.
I don't think you want to take away from the marketing of the Arkham trilogy right now. I think that would be their kind of focus in terms of Batman instead of getting Gotham Knights involved.
What marketing? I'm sticking with Gotham Knights. Gotham Knights is in. Arkham is out. Arkham already got announced.
Yeah, but still, feels like it's a lot of Gotham.
Mm-hmm.
Then you want that. You still want those people to be excited about playing as Batman, not a game where Batman's dead.
I'm going to stick with Gotham Knights. You're going to stick with Arkham. We'll see what happens.
Well, maybe both.
So based on that logic, are we going to see more of the Metal Gear Solid collection?
No.
Why not?
After the preview reception to the Switch version, I don't think Konami's all that eager to show it again.
Mm.
Anything, they kind of don't want to bring new light to it because they want you to buy the game, just pre-order the game, buy it, and then be disappointed if the game's is as reported 30 FPS. Unless they can come to the Direct and say it's 60 FPS on the Switch.
Yeah.
You continue to leave that version in the shadows.
All right. Well, let's ask the audience. Audience, are you Team Gotham? So hashtag Team Gotham or hashtag Team Arkham. We'll see. We'll see who is victorious.
Or hashtag Team Neither.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right. 3 options.
Now, for the third party segment, I am now going to pivot to what would be your just out there prediction?
Out there prediction for a third party game? Oh my God. What's yours? I have to think about mine for a second. What have you got?
I have 2.
Okay.
The first is going to be a brand new Valkyria Chronicles game from Sega.
Mm-hmm.
And my second is going to be a Switch port of Kenna.
Okay. They're very calculated and very good predictions. I'm going to say WayForward is working on Bakugan 2 because remember a couple of years ago when after the direct happened during I think it was 2020
Yeah, everyone
during COVID, and they were like,
we have a huge
we've got a
announcement.
massive announcement, one more thing coming up tomorrow, and everyone was like, oh my God, what is it? Is it a new Metroid game? Is it I don't know, like is it F-Zero? Is it
A
Donkey
lot of
Kong?
Metroid hype around that because they made the Mummy
Yeah. Oh
demastered,
yeah,
so it's going to be a Metroid game.
that's right. And ended up being Bakugan. So I'm going to say Bakugan 2 gets announced at this direct.
That's certainly a prediction. I don't think anyone out there, anywhere else, has made that as a prediction. Wow. I mean, if it happens, you look like a genius.
I mean, if it happens, I'm buying a lottery ticket.
And I would encourage you to do so.
Honestly, Nate, I have no idea what to expect. I think, look, if I'm being serious for a moment, I mean, there are some third-party games that potentially could find their way to the Switch. But I'm just, at this point, I'm just wondering, how much more are we going to see from third parties, for like older AAA style games that come to the Switch.
Uh-huh.
I feel like we're at a point now where a lot of that stuff is winding down. So it's very hard to kind of come up with something. But I do like your Valkyrie Chronicles prediction. That's a good one. Look, I'm going to be serious for a minute and say this is something I've talked about previously at previous kind of prediction episodes, but I still want to see that Sonic Adventure collection from Sega. I want to see that Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 double pack. Let's get it out there for this direct, Sega. Make it happen.
That'd be nice. Definitely be a surprise. And I mean, as we just did celebrate the 24th anniversary of the Dreamcast launch back on 9999.
That's right. That's a very good point. I didn't even think about that.
So maybe next year would be the better timing, be the 25th. Something to consider. But yeah, to your prior point there, we are nearing that late stage of this generation. There's not a lot of PlayStation 4 and Xbox One versions of these more recent third-party games to use as that base to downport from. So as more and more games began to shift over to the PlayStation 5 and Series X and even the Series S, it definitely made downports a greater challenge because they wanted to take advantage of the hardware and all the specifications that they offered. So it does feel as though those third-party offerings are going to begin to become a little more slim, at least in terms of those major, triple A third-party type announcement and reveals. As we said, you still have companies like Square Enix where you have Dragon Quest 3 HD that will be coming to the Switch. Though we're not expecting it at this particular direct, it's still a game that will be coming to the platform whenever Square Enix happens to release it. So there's still going to be a lot of quality games from third-party partners moving forward. It's just we may be beyond that time of expecting significant announcements from them, because if this were maybe a year ago, we probably would have made a joking type of prediction that Capcom would announce the cloud version of Exoprimal.
Right.
But I don't think that's really a viable option at this point, which means it will likely happen. But we go to
speaking of Capcom.
Oh dear.
Power Stone. You get anything from Power Stone?
No.
Okay, we can move on.
We don't deserve the greatness of Power Stone right now.
Probably not.
But man, do I wish it would happen.
It'd be cool to have on the Switch.
It would. It'd be a perfect little portable release. They had it on the PSP back in the day.
It was fantastic. Fantastic.
Good. If we had some good online multiplayer on the Switch. Ooh. I'd take out Wang Tang, go blonde, and kick some ass.
I like it.
Now we'll go to some of our predictions for Nintendo's own output in their direct. And there's been a lot of rumor, if not leaks, surrounding what Nintendo could potentially have at this direct. Now, whether or not those leaks slash rumor is all encompassing, or if there are other Nintendo games that could make a presence in the direct, remains to be seen. So this is going to be a interesting segment of predictions for Nintendo because, again, much like the third party side, Nintendo is winding down this generation. Yes, they have games that will be coming out on the Switch for, the rest of 2023 and well into 2024, potentially beyond. It all comes down to when the successor does come to market and how much Nintendo wants to continue to support the Switch. When we look at previous hardware generations, we have seen them commit resources to a fairly significant amount of games on the prior generation. You can look to the 3DS that got Samus Returns, it got Mario and Luigi, and some other releases like Luigi's Mansion well after the introduction of the Switch. So that's likely to be replicated in this case as well. So some of the rumored games right now around this upcoming direct include F-Zero, which has been discussed to varying degrees over the last year.
Yeah, so and maybe let's kind of dig into this a little bit because I'm a little bit confused about what we should expect from F-Zero, if anything. But let's
Mhm.
assume that we are going to see something from F-Zero because a lot of people are talking about it. I'm not really sure how credible some of these sources are that are talking about it, but I'm seeing a lot about F-Zero. There's a lot of F-Zero chatter going on right now. And F-Zero GX, the original version, obviously on the GameCube, is one of those games that we've talked about previously as a possibility for a game that could see a remaster or a remake. I would probably say it's a remaster. Given the fact that it already does run at 60 frames per second, it's still a beautiful looking game. Like, just even if you go back and play the GameCube version, Nate, it's absolutely gorgeous. It runs silky smooth, and it does. A lot of people don't know this, and I've mentioned this before. It has a 16 by 9 widescreen mode built into the menus. You can turn that on at any time and play on a widescreen TV or an HD TV. So, other than obviously the multiplayer side that they would need to figure out, I don't think there's really that much work involved to bring F-Zero GX to the Nintendo Switch, especially as we know that they have a good GameCube solution and emulation layer that they have used previously for other games. So F-Zero GX is one of those games where I feel like it exists in some capacity. And as you said, because we are getting to that point where things are starting to wind down, the time sounds about right to me. So I'm going to say F-Zero GX is a thing at this direct. But I want to hear your thoughts about F-Zero GX. I also want to hear your thoughts about F-Zero 99. I guess the first question is, can you tell me what F-Zero 99 is?
Well, only in theory could I tell you about F-Zero 99. As if that is to be the F-Zero project that comes out of this direct, let's say it's the only F-Zero project, potentially it's the F-Zero project I had heard about,
Mm-hmm.
despite having had heard from a source that it was going to be GX. But let's say somehow they got it wrong.
Yeah.
F-Zero 99 would be in the same vein as Tetris 99,
Yeah.
Pac-Man versus Mario 35, where you're essentially doing a battle royale and you're competing with other people.
So
Now,
what's the base game though you're playing, or is it just a new experience that they're building?
ideally, if I had to craft my perfect version of F-Zero 99, it would be you versus 98 other racers in a death race that we
Yeah.
have seen in prior F-Zero games,
Mm-hmm.
including X and GX. And it would be online, and that's what you do. You just, as you're racing around the lap, a certain amount of players would be removed. So if you're in the bottom 10, you're removed after the first lap. If you're in the bottom 15 in the second lap, you're removed again until you finally crown a winner.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one thing I don't want to see them do is if F-Zero 99 is a thing, I don't want to see them employ the exact same mechanics that we had seen from Tetris or Mario 35, where you're collecting items on the track and you're throwing obstacles at your opponents. I want it to be a pure racer. So, depending on how the game would be actually deployed, there is a winner here, but it has to just be a death race.
Yeah.
Anything else, I think, becomes a little too extra and would greatly remove some of the appeal that an F Zero release in that style would have. So I'd be curious. So if F Zero 99 is a thing, I hope it goes that death race route. If not, then I just want F Zero GX to be the release.
What about option number 3? We get
Hmm.
F-Zero maximum velocity on the GBA by NSO. And that's the extent of our F-Zero.
For this direct?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if we go by the rumors, that won't be the case. And I mean, we know that's coming to GBA NSO already. It was officially confirmed back earlier this year. It's actually one of the remaining games still to come to the service. I believe there's only 2 left on the list. So, I mean, maybe the theme of this direct is loosely F Zero. We get F Zero 99, we get GX, and F Zero GBA also releases.
That would be, I would call that a blowout. Would that be fair to say? We're getting an F-Zero blowout at this direct?
That sounds a little too
okay, maybe not a
little
blowout.
too dreamlike though.
Maybe a hot lap. How about that?
Hot lap.
Yeah,
you got a boost power.
Yeah, we've got some boost power going on here.
You've got boost power. Yeah, it's a little too dreamy though. I mean, F-Zero has been in hibernation now for close to 20 years, and now we're gonna get
I personally would like to see GX. I think that would be a really cool announcement. And man, it looked pretty damn good on an OLED Switch, huh?
Oh, it looked fantastic. I mean, I think every F-Zero fan would prefer GX.
Oh, yeah.
99 done right would definitely have strong appeal, though I would be curious as to what they would use as a base. Would you use Super NES style visuals, or would you go with something closer to F-Zero X, which is the N64 game?
That's what I was getting at previously. What would they kind of use? I would probably think they would use the N64 as the base, which is a great game too, by the way.
We haven't really had a visually impressive versus or 99 game on NSO. Like, look at our prior examples: Tetris, Mario 35, which was just the NES sprites, and then Pac-Man. Very basic in terms of visual design and scope. So you'd think maybe that Super NES version could be that, if F-Zero 99 is a thing, that they would go with that just for simplicity's sake. But I think going 3D would definitely be the smarter, more ambitious choice. So
I also want to add quickly about F-Zero. It's getting up there in price on the GameCube. I'm looking at the prices now. Oh my God. The cheapest I've seen it for is $70.
That's pretty pricey.
And it's probably averaging for about 120 for a kind of complete copy of it. Yeah, Nintendo, give us F-Zero GX. That would be terrific. Shadow drop it tomorrow and give us a physical later on. I'll take that.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone would take that. And I mean, it would definitely fit that recent trend of the last 2 directs have had GameCube games get announced and shadow dropped. So there is definitely that expectation leading into this direct that they will continue it. So F-Zero GX is candidate number 1, more to come. Now, another rumor going around is that there's going to be a Wii and DS remaster or a remake, and they are connected to each other, which has led to a lot of speculation. Could it be the Trauma Center games that started on the DS also came to Wii with Second Opinion? Or could it be the long time niche series from Sing, Another Code?
What do you think? This is not really up my alley. But I did hear that the studio no longer exists, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that the game cannot be remastered, of course.
Right. Like, they could bring it back. They would just have to be nice for them to acknowledge the studio. I mean, it's a visual novel. The Wii version was never released in North America. It was released in Japan and Europe. This was kind of during that phase when NOA under Reggie was not localizing games all that frequently, so we never got Disaster Day of Crisis. Xenoblade took a lot to get over here. Another code stayed in Europe. So it would be a nice release to finally have in North America, but admittedly, again, it's a very niche type of release, but there is an audience for it. So I'd be curious if that is the case as the rumors are suggesting at the moment. The rumors also suggest that we will get the official title of the upcoming Super Princess Peach game, and it will make an appearance in this direct. This was announced back in June.
Mhm.
Really didn't get that much of a look at it there beyond them announcing and showing Peach on it appeared to be a stage. So I think a little deeper look at the game at this direct is a very smart decision for Nintendo.
Yeah, I think so. This is a safe prediction as well. We'll see more of this game and maybe a release window. We'll definitely get to see more of the game, the mechanics of this game as well. But yeah, I think Super Princess Peach is a good one.
Now, another rumor going around is that we're going to have a Mario versus Donkey Kong game be announced in this direct. And this is a franchise we actually have not seen find any type of release on the Switch up to this point. It was very prominent on the Wii U and the 3DS, and then just kind of disappeared. If you're not familiar with it, it's basically you solve some puzzles and such using mini Marios and things. It's a nice little comfort game, not exactly an overly ambitious style of game, but definitely one of those games you'd get towards the end of a generation as kind of a, lack of a better term, filler release.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think there is an audience for this style of game. I just don't know if it's going to excite people all that much if it is announced at this direct.
It's not exciting me, I'll tell you that. Is this the only thing we're getting from Donkey Kong, Nate? Is this it? Because if it is, then
In this particular direct, this could be the only thing related to Donkey Kong. I mean, this isn't the Donkey Kong project I had heard about. No, that's something else entirely. But the Mario versus Donkey Kong games, they've been around for a long time now, but it definitely feels as though,
yeah.
it's just that nice little filler release towards the end of a generation.
Yeah. I mean, I like Mario versus Donkey Kong for a direct. It fits for me. It fits September as well.
Now, there is a lot of rumor going around about Super Smash Brothers and that there could potentially be some sort of update announced during the direct. And a lot of this seems to be in relation to amiibos being reprinted with the packaging also being changed with the consoles listed on it, as well as the recent listing of Walmart now taking pre-orders for a Switch Pro controller Smash Brothers edition, which is now coming back in stock. So it seems as though there is a lot of movement around the Smash Brothers line at the moment. If there is an update to Smash Brothers, or do you think there will be an update to Smash Brothers in this direct?
No.
And if so, what?
No, there won't be. Sakurai's playing Starfield right now. Yeah, you're making video games, Nate. I don't think there's any update to Smash Brothers. Come on. Smash Brothers is done. But at least for this generation. So I don't expect to see an update. What do you think, though?
If there's an update, it's just going to be small. It could be something as basic as they're going to announce the intent to release a Sora amiibo, and that would require an update to make it compatible with the game. But like, I don't think it's going to be anything meaningful. I don't see us getting brand new stages or a new fighter, anything like that. Maybe Nintendo releases a, let's say, a DLC pack that includes all the fighters for one set price.
See, I thought about something like that, or I also thought about maybe some type of physical edition that has everything on the cartridge.
Yeah, like a complete edition.
I mean, that has some appeal, I guess. But I also wonder, who is that marketed for as well? I mean, Smash Brothers obviously has sold a lot and it still sells. But I don't know. Like, I just feel like there's not really going to be anything Smash Brothers related.
Like, I see the appeal of a complete edition because there's probably a fair amount of individuals out there who maybe they picked up a couple of fighters of interest,
Yeah.
and then there were those fighters like, I don't really want to give you $5. So now if
Right.
Nintendo came in with a complete edition, let's say for, and what price point would be fair? Let's say $70 or $80.
Hmm.
All the content on the game card. I wouldn't be surprised if you see a lot of, double dippers there because now you finally have the full version. But at the same token, we never got a complete edition on the 3DS or the Wii U,
Yeah,
at least when it came to physical.
that's true.
So this would be an interesting move by Nintendo. And you could even look to Mario Kart, which is still getting DLC. And I would suspect we see Wave 6 here. But would that then imply that moving into 2024 or hell, maybe even this holiday season, that Nintendo would offer a complete version of Mario Kart at retail with all the DLC tracks that we've received over the last couple of years?
Well, I don't know if that implies that, especially since they just announced the Mario Kart bundle again for the holiday. It's hard for me to imagine they would do that this holiday, but potentially they could introduce that maybe next year. Look, I don't think so. I don't think we'll see that. I think they're going to stick to the process of what they've done pretty much every year, and that is just sell the Mario Kart Switch bundle for the holiday and the Wave 6 DLC. Yes, that is a thing, of course, as we know, and that will come out. But beyond that, I don't really expect anything more.
No, I mean, Nintendo has a lot of, I'll say, loose ends to kind of tie up. We still have some DLC coming to Splatoon 3
Yep.
with Side Order. So this, again, with this being that Tokyo Game Show type of direct and knowing how popular Splatoon is in the Japanese region, seems like the proper time for them to show a new trailer of what that DLC will have, give some idea of the content and the direction that the game's going to be, and maybe give it a date for when it comes out next year at this direct.
Yeah. Splatoon 3 Side Order. I think if anything is a lock at this direct, Nate, probably this.
Now, last September, Nintendo had announced Fire Emblem Engage for the Switch, came out earlier this year, and fans had noticed that Nintendo went through the DLC releases quite quick over the calendar year of 2023, almost as though they were being rushed to release the content instead of spacing it out. And perhaps that was the case, as Fire Emblem 4, known as Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War, has been remade for the Nintendo Switch. It's simply waiting for Nintendo to announce it. And given last year's announcement of Engage, there's some expectation that the game could be announced at this upcoming direct and then released in early 2024. It's really reliant on when Nintendo wants to bring this game to market. There's nothing preventing it. It's simply up to Nintendo as to where they want to slot it in to their upcoming software release schedule. I think this direct makes a lot of sense for this release, but on that same token, I would not be all that surprised to see them once again opt to wait a little longer and announce it in early 2024 at the first direct of next year.
Yeah. This is look, this is a tricky one to predict based on what you said. It could very easily not get mentioned and wait till early next year. Look, this is a coin toss for me, really, honestly, Nate. But I'm gonna say it's gonna be in this direct.
I mean, I certainly hope it is there. The game never was released outside of Japan, so longtime Fire Emblem fans, they have heard of the game's legacy,
Mm-hmm.
and now it may finally be time to experience it firsthand. Now, we naturally have to bring up Metroid Prime in a couple of ways. The first is going to be, will Metroid Prime 2 be the GameCube shadow drop for this direct? Keeping in mind, candidate 1 is F-Zero GX. Will Prime 2 be candidate 2?
Ooh. This is very difficult. You're right. There's only going to be one. There can only be one, right? It's like Highlander. Can only be one. Can't have two GameCube Shadow drops. I think F-Zero GX has got it. I don't know about Prime 2 HD remaster. I know that there has been chatter about it. I know that there's been talk that it's done. It was a part of the development of the Metroid Prime 1 and 2. All that I think is true. But one of these games isn't going to make this direct. It's probably going to make early next year, February direct, or whenever they have it, March potentially. I'm going to say F-Zero's got it. Metroid Prime 2 HD remaster is going to sit it out.
Yeah, I'm approaching Prime 2 with a little bit of hesitancy at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's one of those cases that, yeah, Nintendo could, but it's just like last year. Nintendo could have released Metroid Prime Remastered last year. They decided to wait until February of this year to do it.
And no one expected it as well. It just kind of came from nowhere. I think that's...
that was largely because everyone was expecting it last year, especially with the anniversary.
Exactly.
And then nothing came of it. And it was like, okay, why? And oh yeah, we're just going to randomly shadow drop it in February, which had no significance to the game whatsoever or the franchise. So it was definitely a surprise. The only way I see Prime 2 being shadow dropped here is if we do in fact see Metroid Prime 4 here. And right now I'm kind of leaning towards no. Maybe you can convince me otherwise.
I don't think I can convince you otherwise, Nate. I've tried to convince you on every other predictions episode that Metroid Prime 4 was coming, and it never did. I think Metroid Prime 4 purely is 2024. I think Nintendo is not even going to acknowledge it at this direct. I think they're going to talk about it next year. There is talk that it could potentially be a cross-generation game with new hardware. I think there's a lot of reasons to believe that could be the case. Nintendo has obviously done games like that before. When I think about Twilight Princess on the GameCube and the Wii, for example, so they're no stranger to bringing out a port, or sorry, not a port, a game on two generations of their systems. I think I can't convince you that Metroid Prime 4 is going to be at this direct. I think it's going to be next year. So I would be surprised if we actually heard anything about Metroid at this direct.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am right now. It's entirely reliant on when Nintendo's bringing Prime 4 to market. If it's coming out in the first half of 2024, then yes, it would be at this direct. It's just a question of, is it going to be the first half of 2024? Because if it does in fact become a cross-generational release, Nintendo could opt to wait a little longer into that generation or with that launch window of new hardware to bring Metroid Prime 4 to market. The game could very well be complete at this point, and Nintendo is just waiting for that opportunity. And again, this is that September Direct, Tokyo Game Show, which maybe I'm focusing too much on. And Metroid doesn't have that big of a presence or relevancy in the Japanese market. It almost feels as though this would be a mismatch if they had a heavy presence in terms of opening the show with it or closing with it.
Yeah.
Because I don't think the Japanese market would really click with it all that much. That's where I view something like the Fire Emblem 4 remake would have a much more dominant presence due to its reputation in Japan.
Yeah, and look, a lot of people are going to probably say that we're crazy for not saying Metroid Prime 4 is going to be at the direct, or isn't going to be at the direct, I should say, simply because, we basically are saying that this is one of the last Nintendo Directs for the Switch, in its current form that we'll potentially see. So we're at that point now where they have to show something, but they don't have to show anything. Like they can show it when they're ready to. And I think that's one of the things I've learned about Metroid Prime 4 is that when I think this is it. Last year was supposed to be Metroid's year, right? And kind of wasn't really. I think, this year we've seen more of Metroid, earlier on this year, and there's been more hype and excitement about it, with the GBA version as well, Metroid Fusion that came to that service. So I don't know. I think Metroid Prime Remaster 2 or Prime 2 HD Remaster and Metroid Prime 4, they're both 2024.
Yeah, I mean, Metroid Prime 4 will come out in 2024. It's just a matter of which half of the year. And unfortunately, that dictates when we will see it. So I guess my prediction for this direct is if the game comes out in the first half of next year, we will see Prime 4 at this direct. If it comes out in the second half of next year, we will not see it until the first direct of 2024.
Bonus question. Will it come out with new hardware? Well, will it be? Well, let me rephrase the question. Will it be available on new hardware?
When the time comes, I would say yes.
Okay, I agree. I think that makes sense.
Now, what would be your high hope, will it into existence announcement from Nintendo at this direct?
I hope willing into existence. Ooh. I mean, my high hope willing into existence would have been Metroid Prime 4, but we just completely shot that down. So what's left here? Oh my god. I don't really know what we could potentially see from Nintendo that we already haven't that's come out on the Switch. I mean, there's the possibility of the Kid Icarus Uprising game, but that's not really something that I feel like is kind of number one on my list. I would say the game that I've always wanted to see on the Switch is Eternal Darkness. I would love to see that game come back. I don't think it ever will, but now is the time, Nintendo, for Eternal Darkness.
It would be an interesting release, especially because you would have to reconstruct the sanity effects.
Yep.
Because you can't have the screen go, furry with green.
Right. I mean, you definitely have to make some changes here and there.
Yeah, and it can't be like, take out your memory card. I don't have a memory card. I'm playing on a Switch.
Right. You could say take out your Joy-Cons or
could do that.
Take out your SD card.
Man, it's actually be a lot of cool things. Like you could have the Joy-Con HD rumble just start going crazy.
Yeah, you could do some cool ideas. You could
be like, what's happening?
Invert the screen or do something cool.
That'd be pretty cool. All right, that'd be cool.
I'm gonna say Eternal Darkness. That's my hopes and dreams game.
I'm going to stick with the GameCube as well, and I'm going to will into existence that we get an announcement of Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door HD.
This is a good one. Again, this is another game that there's been chatter about. There's been rumblings about this game. So I like this for your prediction. I think it's more grounded and it's probably going to happen over something like Eternal Darkness. Good pick. Now, let's say they do announce Paper Mario Thousand-Year Door HD. This is another GameCube game, as you said. Where does that fit with F-Zero GX? Do you think it's because they're completely different games for completely different people? It's something that could coexist? Or what does Paper Mario Thousand-Year Door look like?
I mean, I think it would look like a true remaster. It would be a physical release that would come out in that early portion of 2024. It wouldn't be a shadow drop. So, a thing like Prime 2 or F-Zero GX could still release day and date with the direct and have no impact with Thousand-Year Door potentially being announced.
Yeah.
So it'd be two individual things there.
It's a good pick though. And again, we've heard about Paper Mario Thousand-Year Door before. I think there was some rumors that it was in development, and maybe we've predicted that it would come at a previous direct, maybe a year ago. So, hey, if the time is now, then I think we may see it. But I'm going to stay Eternal Darkness.
NSO. Did we get a new roadmap of games for the service? It's around renewal time, and we're kind of running low on games on that roadmap for N64, GBA, GB.
I think we'll get some type of update for NSO. I'm not really sure what it might entail. They could potentially, give us the additional GBA games or the announcement if F-Zero is indeed a boost power blowout, whatever we're calling it, and we do see GX and potentially 99. They could announce the GBA game as a part of that. They did announce GoldenEye last year, I believe, as well for NSO.
Yep, they gave us a detailed look at the N64 roadmap for the remainder of 2022 and 2023. And right now, the only two remaining games are Mario Party 3 and 1080 Snowboarding.
Yeah, well, based on history, I like September Direct for NSO updates. I could definitely see us getting the remaining roadmap for the N64 games. 1080p is a game that I personally am a big fan of. Mario Party 3, I know people love that game as well. So yeah, I could see an NSO update, a general one with some updates on Game Boy Advance and N64. I personally would like to see that happen.
Maybe all the expectation around Smash Brothers is just Smash Brothers 64 coming to NSO early 2024.
I mean, that wouldn't be bad either. I mean, I will say that the online service or NSO, we've used it a few times, Nate. I know we have. We played. I wasn't there for the GoldenEye playthrough, but I played Mario Party with you guys, and we played Star Fox on there before, and it's not bad. It's not terrible. You can definitely get away with playing online if you have a decent enough connection. So putting Smash Brothers on NSO it's not a bad move to make. And maybe that is the extent of what we get for Smash Brothers, but that wouldn't be a bad announcement. And I think it would be really cool as well because there are a lot of fans, younger fans of Nintendo, the Switch, that probably have never experienced the original Smash Brothers game in all its kind of jankiness, but there's still something very, very charming and appealing about the whole game. And for me, I don't know how, what you remember of the original Smash Brothers when it first came out, but I was quite impressed with it because I didn't think the N64 was capable of pulling off 60 frames per second. And that was one of those handful of games that ran at 60. I think F-Zero X was another one, and there's a couple of others, of course, but there's definitely the outliers. So when that game actually came out and it ran at 60, I was quite impressed with what they had. So yeah, look, putting Smash Brothers on NSO, Smash Brothers 64, is a cool little touch, and I'd like to see it. I don't know if we're going to get Smash Brothers at all at this direct, but I do think there will be an NSO update, and hopefully we'll hear more about the N64 stuff.
Yeah, I do think we get a roadmap update for NSO because they are running out of games on the current roadmap. And if you want people to renew to the service, you either need to have a meaningful release, potentially following the direct or like the immediate week following, or you have to show that there's going to be a lot of content to come to keep people engaged and wanting to use NSO beyond just for online and cloud saves. And it will be interesting to what potential games Nintendo could include to the service moving forward. So I think now is a good time for that. Now, I'm going to end on this one. Hardware. Does Nintendo make any mention of new hardware during this direct?
Oh, I don't think so. I think the focus is purely on Switch here. I don't think they want to dilute that in any capacity. I think 2024 is the year of new hardware. We just recorded our previous episode a few days ago talking about what we had read about at Gamescom. So I think Nintendo isn't going to disturb the landscape of the Switch at this direct. But I can't help but wonder, Nate. Can't help but wonder, maybe, and this is a 5% chance, but there is a chance. Maybe they could say something about 2024, about new hardware is in development, potentially. But I think about that as well, and just wonder, how would that affect their existing customer base that is looking to buy a Switch, an Animal Crossing bundle, or a Mario Kart bundle for the holiday? Would that impact those people? And I'm not really sure if it would, but it might. And I think if it might, then Nintendo's, Furukawa plays things very, very safe. He plays things very close to his chest. I don't think this direct will have any announcement or any information about new hardware, whether that is just a very, very small tease. What do you think, though? Because I will say I have a small chance that maybe they will, but I also feel like, look, this Gamescom stuff and this Tokyo Game Show stuff, it's completely separate from what Nintendo's plans are, because a lot of that was really, it seems like the Gamescom stuff was mostly Nvidia that kind of ran that stuff, at least based on what we know, right? So I think, look, I'm going to say probably not. What do you think?
It, like you said, there does exist the chance.
Yes.
Whether it is a low percentage chance, it's still a chance. And it could be something as basic as what we've seen Nintendo do in the past, where they go to Twitter and just say, we plan to discuss our ambitions with next generation hardware in the near future, or even give it a more general window if they choose to, and then say, stay tuned.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that would happen here, not because it's going to negatively impact their holiday ambitions, because those picking up those Mario Wonder bundles or those Animal Crossing bundles, they're late adopters. Those are individuals who aren't all that concerned about what's coming next. You waited 7 years to get into the generation. You're not going to be an early adopter if new hardware comes out in the first half of 2024 or even in late 2024. You're buying in now because that's that's just how your pattern is. You buy in late, you happen to get a good deal on the hardware here where you're getting essentially a free game, or you could also view it as the system is getting a price drop and they're just disguising it by doing a bundle. And I almost wouldn't be too surprised if in the direct itself or soon after Nintendo does announce a permanent price drop on some of this hardware. Maybe after the holidays conclude and these bundles are off the shelf, they can give it a price drop officially. I don't think they begin to talk about next generation at this direct. It could come an hour after the direct, it could come in a few weeks after the direct, but not in the direct itself. It doesn't feel as though it is the right time and place to do that.
Yeah.
And Nintendo's never really used a direct format to relay that type of information before, so I'd be very surprised if they do it here.
Yeah, I agree. It would be very surprising, I think, to get information about new hardware. You're right. I think the way that they would probably open up the conversation is a simple Twitter drop. Just a quick, hey, 2024 is going to be a big year for us. We're planning to announce some new hardware. Stay tuned. We'll have more to come. And I think that's enough, I think, to really, get the ball rolling on that. I don't know if they really need to do that in a direct.
Yeah, I think they still have time for that. And I mean, they can choose the format and such. I think this is just going to primarily focus on the software they have coming out this holiday season, a little into that first half of 2024, but I think the focus is going to be exceptionally tight. And it's going to be an interesting show just in terms of what content is there. And it's going to be very telling as to what Nintendo is planning for the future of the Switch hardware generation. And I look forward to being able to analyze and discuss what is shown at this direct, almost more so than what we could potentially see.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it'll definitely be interesting when the dust settles and this is all done, because we'll definitely have some more visibility on what the plans are. Look, I know that we never get 100% accuracy here. We usually do pretty well on predictions. I think we're probably batting at about a 65 to 70% accuracy most of the time. This one, I don't know how much confidence I have in anything happening, to be honest. But I think there's probably going to be a few things, because if it's not this list, then what is it, right? So there's definitely has to be some of this stuff that happens, I would say. But I guess my final question, Nate, to you is how do you think this direct is going to go for Nintendo? Do you think this is going to be a good one? You think it's going to be had some good moments but mostly forgetful, or do you think it's going to be a pretty bad one?
I think it's going to be a direct that is going to be heavily reliant on a single announcement making or breaking it for the majority of people. And by that I mean, let's say the direct ends with Metroid Prime 4 and you get Metroid Prime 2 Shadow Drop. I think that will excite a lot of people, even if the rest of the show is F-Zero 99 and Mario versus Donkey Kong and a look at the Mario Kart DLC, even if it's just updates on previously known games. Ending on a high note like Prime 4 would probably resonate with a lot of people. Or maybe if the game is more your style of Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War, that's going to make the show for you, even if the rest is boring and dull to you. There's always going to be that one game that resonates with individuals. And I think this direct will have that singular surprise that's going to make people say, okay, I didn't mind that direct in the end. But then maybe once you actually distance yourself and you take a day or two to marinate on it, you might look at it and say, you know what? It ended up being the traditional September direct. Couple of neat announcements, few new updates, but ultimately a lot that didn't cater to me or just wasn't all that interesting. So maybe that grade comes in a little lower, but that's where I definitely look forward to watching the direct and then being able to discuss what we saw and what it means for the future of Nintendo and the Switch.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the thing about Nintendo Directs is even the worst direct I've seen always has something for everyone. Like there's at least one or two cool things you can take away from a direct and say that was a cool announcement. So I don't really expect this to be any different. You're right. If they do finish off with something strong like Metroid Prime 4 or something big, that would be really cool. And hopefully we'll see. Hopefully this will be a good one. But I think when the dust settles, we'll probably circle back and make some type of follow-up as well at some point, because I think this is one of the most interesting Nintendo Directs that will occur for a while. It's very interesting timing wise as far as where we are in the generation, and we're about to we think we're about to begin a new one next year. So let's see how this goes.
And with that, we go to the Streamlabs portion of the week. And our first question comes from Baron, who donated $3, and they write, "Hello, gentlemen. No questions here. Keep up the good work. Smiling emoji."
Thank you, Baron.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Then had a donation from Mr. L, who donated $3.13, and they write, "If the next Nintendo Switch has the capability the leaks suggest, does this, to your mind, increase the chances of the console achieving backwards compatibility through emulation? Thank you both."
Oh, we always get these backward compatibility questions, and they're so difficult to really answer because we just have no visibility on the hardware specs right now. We know some things, we know some demos that were shown off, but we don't have any visibility, any insight as to what the hardware is. We don't know anything about the SoC. We don't know anything about its clock speeds. We don't know anything about GPU, its clock speeds. It's very difficult to say emulation based backward compatibility until we learn more. I know it's a safe answer to give, but it's also a real answer. It's very hard to say yes, this is going to be emulation based. We have zero knowledge of the hardware at this time.
Mm-hmm. Then had a $10 donation from Barkin Bits. With the faster Switch successor load times, do you think Nintendo will forego micro SD cards for M2 SSD support?
I don't think so. I still think there will be SD card support because it's something that Nintendo has used for a long time. Now, it wasn't micro SD card, but the Wii had an SD card slot, the Wii U had an SD card slot. They like that kind of storage media to expand the storage. So I don't believe they'll have M2 expansion, but maybe they will. But I'm going to say no.
And I think it's going to be a curious thing to watch unfold.
Yeah.
Because depending on what their solution is and how they're achieving these speeds, I do wonder if Nintendo does forego SD, not in favor of M2 SSD, but almost disallowing individuals to expand their storage. And that's where they equip the Switch 2 with a sizable portion of storage just by default. And that's what you use. I mean, I think that would be a very risky maneuver by them if they choose to go that path. But there is no clear answer at the moment as to what their ambitions could do. Because let's just say for backwards compatibility, support, they may include micro SD to play Switch games.
Yes, that's what I was getting at. Maybe they go the approach that Sony and Microsoft have gone, where you can run your legacy games on external storage, but anything that is a native next generation game can only run internally. But we'll just have to wait and see what that looks like.
Yeah, it's hard to say at this point.
Right.
Then had a $5 donation from Vess. If you had to predict, do you believe Nintendo will advertise DLSS directly either in ads or on the box, or just say 4K? As we all know, they never made mention of the fact that they utilize an NVIDIA SoC for Switch. Wanted to know what you think. Thanks.
I think Nintendo... Go ahead, Nate. You go first.
Of those two options, I think Nintendo would go with 4K because DLSS doesn't mean anything to the casual consumer.
Yes.
It's just it's just gibberish terminology. 4K, you immediately know what it is. Just kind of like what they did with OLED. You know what an OLED screen is for most people, and you want to make the name as simple as you can and kind of appeal and attract with what it's achieving. So if you just say Switch 4K, you know exactly what it is. It's a Switch that can do 4K.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on this one. They may have some marketing verbiage around enhanced images or something like that or whatever, but I don't think DLSS, the actual trademark or the name, will be etched onto the box or anything. I don't think Nintendo will acknowledge it. Now, NVIDIA may do some marketing around it, and they should do some marketing around it. I'm sure they would. Nintendo would probably, retweet or signal boost that stuff, but I think themselves on the box and via their marketing, I don't think they'll talk about DLSS because it's, while we know what that is, I think the average person out there, the average consumer, isn't really aware of it. But if you tell them you're going to get 4K visuals at really good fidelity, at good performance, then I think that's really all you need to do.
And our final question for this episode comes from Jackie G, who donated $3 and writes, Embracer Group, A. Says it all. Says it all. But if you'd like to support the channel, we have a Streamlabs link in the description below. Donate any dollar amount, ask a question. We'll answer it at the end of the episode. Donate $100 or more, and we will dedicate the episode to you. And with that, I'd like to thank MVG for joining me as always.
Always a pleasure, Nate. And roll on the direct. I am excited. Let's see what they got for us.
Hopefully they have a good show prepared for us. But let us know your thoughts on the upcoming Nintendo Direct in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the episode, give it a like. If you didn't, give it a dislike. But until next time, continue to embrace the hate.